Imperfectly perfect, imperfectly perfect. Imperfectly perfect, imperfect, imperfectly, imperfectly perfect, imperfectly perfect couple. Oh yeah.
All right, welcome back to the Imperfectly Perfect Couple podcast. I'm Kandy.
I'm Tank. What up, dude?
What's up, everybody? This show is kind of special to us.
Yes.
Very delicate as well. So you want to start it off by going down the whole storyline?
I mean, do you want to jump right into that? Or do you want to go just catch them up to what's been...
Okay, so basically what's been going on, baby has been home for about a month now. 1 month. And we told you guys about, the things and the challenges that we were going through, lack of sleep. Still is having the lack of sleep, I would say. Baby is really, really clingy, and I'm assuming more so because I'm breastfeeding and, she can sense me in more than one way,
But she likes 70s gold music. The soul. She loves that soul gold music.
And a combination of her white noise, little sounds and everything. So, with me, recovery has been kind of, moving along like slowly but surely.
It's getting there.
I still have, some side effects, I would say, or I don't know how you should put it, but from the sciatica, I still experience that, the hip pain.
No more Fred G. Sanford.
I'm not walking like him anymore, but it is coming along pretty good to where, I can bear my weight again. So it's a slow moving progress. I thought from like my previous pregnancies that as soon as I had the baby, like I was going to feel 100% or close to it, I would say, as far as the sciatica goes. But this time around, it hasn't been instant. So it's just me trying to, get back in the swing of things and everything like that. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty much been the same thing with me. Just here, being support, stepping in when I can, doing what I can do when I can do it. I know the kids be amazed at me changing diapers. They're like, wow, you could change the diaper like that? I'm like, yeah, I did y'all the same way. Like, what's wrong with you?
Because, it's sometimes in some households it's taboo for men to change diapers. But it's not taboo for us.
No.
So,
no.
That's one thing that when we brought our firstborn home, I made sure, I'm like, come on. I'm like, we got to get in the swing of things. And
yeah.
So he was fairly new to changing diapers. I was new and getting refreshed to doing it again. I had, younger cousins and other babies that I had watched where I got my practice in.
Shout out to the practor. She think
Where I
about a
got my practice
chiropractor. She want to go to a chiropractor. Okay,
I probably should.
Yeah.
If y'all know any chiropractors out there, please put it down in the description or comment below.
But you were saying you was getting your practice?
Yeah, just getting my practice back with our oldest. And so, showing you and like, okay, this is how you do this. And he caught on pretty well. I was pretty proud. So.
Oh, yeah. And once again, if you guys hear any little weird, the baby is in the studio again.
Yeah, she is. So.
The other children are being preoccupied. So, like I said, these podcasts, these episodes it's a challenge getting them in.
Yes, it is.
So it's, because we was planning on doing them yesterday, or doing this episode the day before, and Kaylani woke up happy.
And then she was grumpy the whole day.
day.
The whole day. I was sending my friends messages like, I don't know what's wrong with this baby today. Like, sometimes she's like night and day. Like, we'll have really good days and then really terrible days.
Yeah.
And then we'll get a mix of back and forth to where it's, good. you're trying to crack a smile a little bit here and there, and then for the rest of the night, it's like, not at all. Like
down here.
So,
but
like
I mean,
I said,
it all come with the territory. You know, of creating your own people.
That's true.
That's what happens. You know what I'm saying?
Have you created your own people?
Hey, I think we have.
I think that's the last one I'm creating.
For sure. Going off of like what we were talking about last week episode, based upon what I seen and what I felt, nah, there's no way in the world I couldn't even, I don't think I can stomach seeing you like that again.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? Because this pregnancy most definitely lived up to every single word of when they say every pregnancy is different and every delivery is different. So most definitely I say that it most definitely lived up to every single word. I say that for sure.
And then I even told him, like, just thinking about, like, what if we were, what was it, 3 years younger?
Oh yeah, like
when we had our first. Like,
yeah.
we were just, going back and forth because, it was a meme out there that said, like, I was 16, 17, 18 when I had my first baby. And now all of my kids are grown at the age that we are now. And it's like, y'all people in y'all 40s or whatever just having y'all first. And it was funny because, like, we experienced our first two. Yeah, we were in our 20s, the first two.
Late 20s.
I was mid, he was late 20s. And then with our last two, it was early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, going into, So it's been a difference. It's been a difference for sure. And it's a lot of patience. I would say, like how we were explaining last show, it's a lot of patience this time around. It's a lot of willpower, I would say.
But you've been doing a good job.
I've been trying.
Because, I would say it seems as if most definitely it's more of a demand. I don't know, it just seems as if she's demanding more of you.
Yeah. Than all of the other babies.
Yeah, it's like she's really demanding you. Like, she good, like when I get her, but it's like that calm down phase, or it's just like, no, this ain't what I want. Nope. Nope. So, but yeah, no, I say most definitely you've been doing very good. Very good. Because that crying just... Whew.
And like how you were explaining, like the crying isn't that piercing with this baby.
Yeah, because Cassidy, oh my, man...
Like, Gabe and Callie, those were our two, like, mellow.
Yeah.
They were mellow. They were,
yeah.
I would say the calm before the storm, huh?
Yeah.
Because Gabe was a calm, and here come Cassidy the storm.
Right.
And then Callie the calm. And then Kaylani, she like a little, like, tornado sometimes. Like,
yeah.
She'll trick you like, okay, here come the clouds. It may be a good day, it may be a bad day. Then it's...
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get. It's most definitely patience. And it's relearning, you know what I'm saying? That's one of the things I can honestly say that, when we get older, the way I just been seeing things is like life itself and just dealing with people and dealing with things or situations or whatever the case may be, it's levels. You know what I'm saying? It's a different version. It requires a different version of you for every situation and every level.
And every role.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because, nothing stays the same forever. Nothing. As hard as we try to remain or try to keep things the same, I think that's the breaking point with a lot of... Well, I ain't gonna say breaking point, but that's the part I think a lot of people have a hard time
it can be the breaking
grasping.
Point.
But that's the part that a lot of people have a hard time grasping. Trying to accept the fact that change is occurring. You know what I'm saying? So, but but for the most part, she's starting to show personality. Just a tad.
Just a tad. We just don't know what we're gonna get every day. It's like
smidge.
I'm talking to her, changing her diaper. She may look at me, wink at me like how he be winking at me. I'm like, oh, you get that from your daddy, this winking stuff. the little smirk, like I'm giving you a half smile. I may give you a whole smile. I may even like throw in a half of a coo. But that's all.
She showed. Yeah,
like
didn't she do that last night? Twice.
And she did it today too. Like it was.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Like what the hell is that? Sounding like Cole from Martin. Oh man. But,
goodness.
But all in all, it's good. That comes with the territory of being a parent, and most definitely if you're fortunate enough to be a parent and
in any way, shape, or form,
and raise your children, those are some of the things right there.
Because not in any way are we not grateful. Let's just get that understood. But
at the same time, we got to let them know the real.
We got to let them know the real. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just more so giving you our experience through a small lens. Because you actually have to be in a situation to really, I would say, really understand completely. Yeah. Or somewhere near the same situation. So. Yeah.
And I think, since we're there, just like Kandy said earlier, this episode right here it's a special one. Mm-hmm. There are some friends and family members that may know, but there's a lot of you that do not know. Mm-hmm. And just like you said, what did you say? What were you saying? Patience?
A lot of patience, a lot of willpower.
Yeah, yeah. And how you just don't know what you're going to get or whatever the case. Mm-hmm. This is going to be the transitioning segue point into what the topic is going to be about. Now, of course, or were you ready?
Go ahead. Say what you were going to say. Of course, what?
Oh, I'm talking about, were you ready to get into that?
Yeah,
part?
We can get into it.
Oh, okay. So, of course, when people find out that they are expecting, in most cases, in a lot of cases, we'll just say that, when they're expecting their child, their first child, or second child, whatever number that is, there are a lot of happy, beautiful emotions that come along with that. Mm-hmm. And people don't necessarily really, I'm not going to say people don't really necessarily associate, but there are some other things on the flip side that maybe parents think about that late, or while they're expecting, maybe some of those things may hit you along the way. You know what I'm saying? So, and what that is, do you want to take over? You want me to keep going?
You can keep going.
Oh, so one of those things are, it's a possibility that your child may need you 100%. And I'm not just talking about raising them and, being there financially and support. And I'm not talking about it that way. I'm talking about, there are children that are born with learning disabilities. There are children born with deformities, if you may. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Physical disabilities, mental disabilities. I would say chromosomal disabilities.
There you go.
So it's just a range of things that can, that could go wrong. That in any pregnancy, it's always kind of like at the back of your mind, but it's not necessarily like, you go through all of the motions of making sure you while you're pregnant, taking your vitamins, and for those that opt into genetic testing and everything like that, you tend to do that to make sure. Even when you're over a certain age, for women, they can opt into doing like an amniocentesis. I don't know how common that is anymore, because I don't really know the stats when it comes to that. But it's always like, mother is doing the best that she can do, but things still can go wrong, and you just don't know, where the wrong may have taken place.
Right.
You don't know if it came from you, if it came from dad, or if it was just one of those, what do they call it, anomalies that just happen just out of the blue.
And some of them are linked to later on down the line, to where if it's not the obvious, one of the most common ones that can be linked to, don't want to say the V word, that can be linked to immunization. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what?
Autism.
Right.
So we have a child with autism.
Who was our oldest?
Who's our oldest, our firstborn.
Yes.
Which is Gabe.
Yes.
So it's been a journey just throughout everything with him. Like he's very bright. He functions. You know, he has cognitive abilities, which is the ability to think and make decisions for himself. You know, but the thing to where it's more so the learning curve for him. So he has a delay when it comes to learning some things, but the main thing with him was that when he was in the midst of developing, he didn't start talking right away. Mm-hmm. So that was the number one, the biggest red flag for us, because we were like, okay, you know, seeing him meet all his marks. Everything. Like when he walked early, he crawled early, you know, he was able to sit up and pull himself up on time, you know, just going backwards with some of the things. But when it came to the talking, he would babble, you know, he would coo, he would make eye contact with us, you know, he would show interest in us, you know, that he needed us or he wanted us, you know. But it was more so like the talking piece wasn't there for him.
It was more so a thing to where, well, how I observed it, you know, because people observe things differently. But me reflecting back on it too, it's exactly what she's saying, but I'm just going to put it in my words a little bit before we go too far, and I may forget some things too. It was more so a thing to where, like, when Gabriel got to that point to where, like, when you a parent, well, I don't even say when you're a parent, but if you've been around smaller children, it's like you kind of expect them to be doing certain things at a certain point. And not only that part, I think it was a thing to where we knew, it seemed as if he wanted to say something, but he just didn't know how to say something. You know, he didn't know how to get it out. He didn't know how to. It was like it was stuck almost. Yeah, like, that's what it was. It seemed like that.
And he would even, now that you mentioned that, thinking back, he would even mimic sounds.
Yeah.
He would mimic sounds. Like, I could sing Old McDonald to him, and he could give me the E-I-E-I-O piece.
Yep.
But he couldn't say what he found on the farm or what he saw on the farm.
Right. Or I can even remember a thing to where, it was a certain toy, it was
a VTech toy.
It was a VTech toy, and I think at the time he might have been 2?
Mm-hmm.
No older than 3 for sure. No older than 3. And I was on my way to work, and Kandy called me, and she was like, "Do you know this boy can identify everything that they call out?" And I had bought, you might have seen it. It's like these mats that you can place on the floor with all of the different ABCs, and you can just call out any letter, and he could identify and go to any letter. But as far as that talking piece, it wasn't there. Even
with books, it was this book that was in particular, and I reordered the book because the other kids tore it up. But the book was entitled "In Grandma's Arms," and so I got the book actually when I was at Wayne State, and I could recite a line, because by this time I've read this book to him so many times that I memorized it to where I could shout out a line to him in the book, and I'd be like, "Hey, Gabe," and then I'll say a line from the book, and he'll take off running, go find the book, and bring it to me so I can read it to him. He knew exactly what it was. So it wasn't that he wasn't understanding what things were or how things looked, or not identifying with, you know, like figures like, you know, when your children identify with apples or this is that, or, you know, it wasn't that he didn't get that piece at all. It was just that it was like we seen that he would want to say it, but it just wouldn't form. He couldn't.
And keep in mind, at this point, we still didn't know what was going on, you know. And I was more so associating it with, you know, the way how I grew up. I'm like, you know, there's no other children around. He need to be around my because I will probably say I had the most smaller cousins at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To where if we wanted to throw him in the ring and he pick up certain things, whatever the case. So I was kind of like, hey, he need to be over there with them, and we need, cause like we are isolating ourselves or whatever the case. So it wasn't necessarily like going back and forth. It was just like me comparing, like I said, the way how I grew up. I mean, it was a lot of us. I had a lot of cousins, and then, I say anybody that grew up in the inner city, in the 80s, early 90s, or whatever the case. I mean, the city streets was, the average block was filled with kids.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is, we out here in somewhat of the suburbs, if you may say, and it's like we in a townhouse.
Mm-hmm.
There's no children out playing like that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm associating it with that. And then I don't know if you want to add something to that.
I would just add too, like the complex that we stayed in was kind of like if children were there, they were in school, because the majority of the parents or the majority of the people, I would say, in our complex, they were, they worked, so it was really no kids there during the day anyway. Yeah. So like, at the time, it was like when he was bringing some of the stuff to my attention, of course we were following up with his pediatrician. We would even take him to appointments that wasn't even geared towards him being seen for anything. So, just to follow up on his development and everything. And so with his doctor, I can remember, because I know I was pregnant at the time too, because Cassidy and Gabe are 2 years apart. So, just in the midst of going back and forth to these appointments, we're like, well, I know you said by the time he's 2, you wanted to wait until he was 2 until we jump-started everything. And, with me being pregnant, I really felt like pressure and stressed out about it, just because I'm like, at the time I was working a retail job. The hours were crazy. I was in school.
Yeah.
Mostly majority of the day.
I'm working midnights.
He on midnights. And so it's like, when I did have time to like sit down and settle everything, or, just in my mind mentally, it was like he was gone. I was at home pregnant, and trying to do homework, waking up in the middle of the night, trying to get stuff finished, and Gabe was asleep. And then trying to, okay, how is this about to work with this, and this? So basically, his pediatrician recommended a program called Early On. So what that is just like you take them to whatever school or place that they designate this program for. Is typically ran through whatever county or whatever that you're in through the state. And with this program, it basically is like a dose of preschool at an early age. So they kind of work on your physical abilities, your cognitive abilities, and parallel play, which is a lot of like playing alongside of children before they kind of interact you or see how you do interacting with other children. Mm-hmm. So it was just a lot of that, and it was maybe like a day or two a week starting off, and then from there it was basically him going to an actual school and him being there 4 to 5 days a week. And, the whole thing with him being around kids that were around his age, that 2, 3, 4-year-old level.
Right.
And this is actual like school now. So
at the age of 3,
at the age like when by the time he was 3, it was like full blown like
school.
We putting our child on the bus.
Yeah. Initially, it didn't start out like that. I gotta say this too. Once again, before we get too far, now keep in mind that this is our first child, mm-hmm. right? And not only that, this is also the grandparents' first child as well. And we getting a lot of
back and
this
forth.
is what I would do, or this is how I would do it. And not saying that nobody was wrong or right, but it's like at the end of the day, you have to make the best decision for your child. You see what I'm saying? And to put the icing on the cake on that as well, I mean, the average guy, your firstborn is a son, a boy. So you expecting to do all of these things and come on, man, let's do this. And we about to play football and we about to do this and that. And then to find out or to hear like it's something is not right. And you at this point, you really don't know how severe it may be later on in life. You see what I'm saying? So that was one of the things. Those are some of the things that was going on in my mind because I'm like, what do we do now? Where do we really go from here? You know what I'm saying? Like man, like what do we do? What do I do? I think the average male that's in a household or that has a family, most males look for solutions. Solutions to problems. Here it is. This is a situation that is not up to you. You hoping you make the best decisions. And the people that most definitely that you respect and love, they're giving you their input. And it's like, you just getting it from everywhere. Like, what you gonna do? I would do this and I would do that. And like Kandy said, she was pregnant again. So it's like a mix of emotions that's just going through. So go ahead.
And even between me and you, because it was like, you were getting, advice from one end. I was getting advice from one end.
Right.
And then it would sometimes make me feel like it was creating a wedge between me and you because it was like the decision that we wanted to make wasn't our decision because we were so in tune to listening to what everybody else had to say. And that goes from, doctors and things that we see on television and, just other recommendations and stuff. But one thing that I would say adamant or stood strong on was we're just going to wait till he's 2. We're going to wait till he's 2 because as far as any program that he can get into right now, they're wanting him to be 2 because they say by the age of 2 that if they had not reached certain, I guess, milestones or markers with talking, that they want to give them at least up into that age before they call their self intervening at any point in time. So 2 years old was why we decided to wait until he was 2. So just fast forwarding, like, he's in school, he's making progress. We're constantly getting updates and reports and attending like the parent-teacher conferences. And basically they put an IEP in place for him at that young age that he was in. Basically what an IEP is an individual education plan. And with these plans, they set you up with different goals and different things and milestones that they want you to meet, whether if it's, okay, you'll be able to identify at least 3 colors by the end of this quarter or by the end of this semester, or, you'll be able to identify numbers, shapes, letters, whatever it is. And it just progresses and grows with you as you continue to grow in school.
But, well, yeah, no, you're 100% correct. Now, along with the IEP and all of these other things, because keep in mind, how is he going to let them know? I mean, he can point to it, but it's other things that they want to physically know that you understand in other ways. So I never forget, he came home with what they call it, the PEC system.
PEC system.
Came home with the PEC system, and it was a thing to where they wanted him to do this for more. They wanted him to do this stuff for more and all of these other things, and I'm like, no.
Basically, it's a way to the PEC system is a way to communicate with flashcards that they may put on a board. So, which in a way, depending on what district or school that you're at, it may look cartoonish in a way. So these like items don't necessarily look how real items would look.
Yeah.
Like a coat. It may be like a cartoon coat or something like that. But basically what it is a picture exchange communication system.
away from that mic too.
Oh. So basically,
you can hold it, but just don't put it right by the mic because I think it'll make it vibrate, do that noise.
Okay, so basically, it's like a board, a picture board, a visual board that they want the children to, when they want something to communicate, run to the board, take the sticker off, give it to the teacher, point to what you want, sign what you want, more of whatever, and you know, it was like when they were telling us this, we were like, okay, but like, how, in our head, how is this helping him learn the language? And don't get me wrong, everything is a language, whether if you can verbally communicate it, but it was just, or whether if you sign it. But what our goal and what we wanted to see progress or progression on was why we wanted him evaluated in the first place was because of language and speech. He could say some things, but can he get the actual words that we want him to get out? Can he say mommy? Can he say daddy? You know, and can he say it when we need him to say it?
Right.
When it's important for him to try to get our attention.
So me being me, I didn't accept it. I didn't accept that. I mean, I know some people may look at that as being like, well, you harsh. But my thing is this. By you being the parent, I feel as if it's your job to learn your children breaking point at a certain, according to age. Learn, push them. And I know some people may say I may get backlash for this. Y'all know what to do. Y'all can hit the email or do whatever y'all got to do, which is imperfectlyperfectcouple.com or at gmail.com or Facebook or Instagram, imperfectlyperfectcouple.com. So with me, I was more so like, let's see how far we can go with it. You know what I'm saying? To where like, and what I mean by let's see how far we can go with it. Like it was a thing to where he was crazy about Cheerios or Cheetos or apples or something. I didn't want to just accept the fact that, because just like Kandy said, he could say certain things, but it was a thing to where making it consistent. Like you can say, like what was something he could probably say at that time?
I'll just say like dad, mom, like but it wasn't to the point to where it was lining up to where he could. Right. He was supposed to
just said, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, we need to build on what you have. Let me see how far you can go. So if I know you want Cheerios or this and that, I'm not about to just accept you going to get a picture. And let's say, for instance, that voice was already in there. I'm not building on top of that. You know what I'm saying? So that was my method of like, let's see how far we can get him to the point to where if he can say, you know what, I'm tired of this. I want apples. I want this. And in our case, it worked. Mm-hmm. It started working. It was things that he really wanted to where we would hold out. We wasn't giving it to him right away. It started working like crazy. Now at this point, well, I don't know if you got something else to go.
No, go ahead.
Now at this point, let's fast forward to where now he's actually in kindergarten now.
Wait, go back.
Okay.
At 4, we were in the process of, okay, like now they say at about 4 years old, it's time to get a diagnosis. So when people are identifying or trying to get the diagnosis for autism, typically you have to take them to some type of like psychiatrist, psychologist, some type of caseworker or someone to be able to diagnose their thoughts and what they think that is going on with your child. So we took him to one hospital, and this system basically came back and told us it's selective mutism. Then, I'm going to go back though. Then we took him for a second opinion for like a private psychologist, and this private psychologist told us it's autism. Now, the thing when it comes to selective mutism, for those that aren't aware, selective mutism is more so on the level of an anxiety disorder. You're selectively mute. So you choose when you want to talk and when you want to speak. And by this time, when Gabe was 4, he was able to get way more words out than when he was getting out at 3 and 2. But how it would seem was that he would talk to people who he felt comfortable with. Mm-hmm. So if he wasn't comfortable with you, like how he was with mom and dad at home, and even though we was boisterous and saying, Gabe talks. He talks at home. And by this time, he was talking up a storm in a sense to where it was way more than what we had seen from when he was supposed to have started talking.
So when IEPs were coming in,
we're like, oh no, he can say this. And they're like, they're not believing us, of course, because it's like, he doesn't do it here at school.
Right.
So basically, if with selective mutism versus autism, they can have some of the same symptoms or the same display of actions, like even when it comes down to no language, the spinning, which is like a fidget that they may have that they do on a repetitious basis. But how it was explained to me by the psychologists at the first place that were psychiatrists that diagnosed him the first time was that if you don't know about selective mutism, you're going to diagnose autism. And if you don't know about autism, if you're not familiar, if you've never had as many cases as autism, you're going to diagnose the opposite. So basically one can easily get mistaken for another.
Because the characteristics are damn near the same.
Right. So the characteristics are somewhat of the same, you know, as far as the language piece that's missing. The smarts were there. So it was like we knew he knew stuff. And it was like, oh, okay, selective mutism does make sense. But most of the school systems that are here in Michigan don't look at selective mutism as being an actual diagnosis that they put on paper, because they put autism automatically. And it may be for the paper, the money or whatever, because I do know there is some counties and some school systems that actually do have a selective mutism program. But at that particular time, when we were in the midst of trying to find him outside therapy, outside of the school district, and looking for different alternatives, like these places that treated selective mutism were 45 minutes, an hour away, an hour and 30 minutes away. So it was like how our schedules were set up, it was damn near impossible.
During that time, it was nonstop go.
Exactly.
If she wasn't running, I'm running on my off days. She doing homework in the midst of speech therapy sessions. It was busy, but it was all worth it. Mm-hmm. It was most definitely all worth it. Go ahead.
So like, it was just a lot of, like, I would say misconceptions with the autism versus selective mutism. So we kind of went along with the autism because insurance doesn't pay for selective mutism. Like, and that was another piece that we had learned. A lot of, your medical insurance, like when you're taking them to these visits and, for the outside therapy, the physical therapy if needed, the cognitive piece if they're needing speech therapy, or it was just a lot of like loopholes that we ended up learning. Like, okay, to jump around this and get through this, we had to go this route versus settling for this, and it was just a lot. It was just a lot. It was a lot of learning. One of
the biggest pieces that I would say that we learned during this whole entire journey, that I learned most definitely, and I know you did too, is advocating. You know,
oh my God,
like, don't necessarily take nobody's word for nothing, because if we would have, I'm a firm believer that Gabe wouldn't have been as far as he is now. I'm talking about the boy can read on a level that's out of this world. I mean, he can, math, science. I mean, he's good. I mean, for the most part, he's functioning. He's good. He's good, but I just firmly believe that if we were not as involved, and even though that it's a lot of nights, a lot of days, mornings, or whatever the case, going back and forth, going up, having different meetings, most definitely he wouldn't have. I don't think he would have been as far.
No, not if we would have held him back. Even the piece that I was speaking on, as far as the bus, we were terrified of sending our 2.5-year-old, 3 at the time, to get on this big yellow bus with other children. Yeah. Because we knew it was a mixed bus. We knew it wasn't just, subjective to, just 2 to 3-year-olds. No. They had kindergartners, first graders. I mean, elementary.
They broke it up by, like the smaller kids were in the front. And then, the higher the grade, they were in the back. And it was a thing to where, we just made it our business to where the best of our ability, we constantly talk to them. I know in Kandy's situation, it probably got a little bit more in depth because, majority of the time I was at work at nights. So I know she probably was talking to him a little bit more just to make sure our story stayed the same. Well, his story stayed the same and consistent on how his day or whatever he would do to let us know. So it was a lot of communication with us, and even with that, I mean, even with the thing of him getting on the bus, even with the first program that he was in, I would say most definitely the grandparents didn't agree with that. They didn't agree with that at all. But like I said, I wanted to push. I didn't want to hold him back because I looked at it like, here it is. It's something that you have that you're being diagnosed with, I should say. That's not going nowhere. And I don't want that to be the excuse or the reason why you don't try to do certain things. If it's a thing to where you don't like it after the fact, then that's fine. But I'm not about to get ready to just pull the cord because, I got to keep you up under my arm 24/7. No, I want, because I look at it like this too. We're not going to be here. You know what I'm saying? We can't be around him 24/7. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and then in some cases, that's certain people's situation. But at this point, this wasn't our situation. We was trying to learn and see what our situation was like. So me, I'm like, listen, and Kandy didn't like it, but I had to have the game face, and I was nervous as well. But my thing is, if I'm showing fear, then she's going to feed off of it. And most definitely, the grandparents will win in this situation. They, what they're saying would seem more valid. How could I hold any weight if I'm being like this? But like I said, it panned out, honestly, Gabe was excited for school. He was one of the first, he loved school.
Yep.
And even to this day.
One of the things, too, that eased our minds about the bus, going back to that, was the 5-point harness system.
Oh, yeah.
They kind of sold us on that. We
yeah.
Nah, we'll just pick him up and take him to school ourselves. And they're like, well, the bus opens up communication, and then he'll hear all the other children talking on the bus, and it maybe, that may be a way to open up the communication piece for him. Right. And we were just like, no, it's not. We were just so against it in the beginning. But once he followed the bus and made sure he got off the bus.
Oh, yeah. We did checks. We did random checks, pop-ups, and
drive-bys.
Walk-ups. Yeah, it's a lot of things we did. Had the bus driver's number and and
they were all cool. Very understanding.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they were nice. They most definitely, I would say, all of the bus drivers he had at that point when he was coming into the complex or whatever, and the kids was on the corner, and I think that him experiencing that. Us not holding him back, injecting him in situations to where it's like, this is something you have to live with. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, at this point, he didn't know. But it's like, go. Spread your wings. Do you. Okay? Things that may be too difficult or may not be too difficult for you. I want you to display that for me or for us. So, and transitioning to the advocate part, how did it go to where he had to go to that other school?
you know, with some of these districts, it's just jacked up.
Yeah.
Because I want to really say something else. But the programs that they hold for the children, because by this point, he's in considered special education, no longer early on. So they will hold the program in whichever building they decide the program is going to be held for the district that we're in. So along the way, and it hasn't been many so far, but we've gotten a jacked up teacher to where
Terrible.
it was a nightmare. I can remember just calling him like, you know what this B just said to me? Or do you know what just happened? Or it was just a lot, because we felt that she was holding him back because she was missing a part or a piece out of her life. She had lost a loved one. And it seemed like when she came back to school to actually work, she wasn't working. Like, we had a communication log, and I still have that communication log, to where we would write notes back and forth. Oh, how's Gabe's day? What's going on? What's this? You know, and even if I needed to email her, I had access to her email.
Because one of the things that we learned when we became parents, and once we became parents and it was time for Gabriel to enter the school system, we seen that there were, you know, of course, and we've all heard our friends or got little brothers, sisters, cousins, whatever the case, the learning system is different. They don't teach things the same way. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we picked up was that, okay, we know the regular ABC song when we came up, and it's just an example. How are you teaching it? Because we want to teach it exactly the same way. We want to use your method. So that was part of the journal communication type of log thing, to where it was like, you know, even though we couldn't physically come into the building or
sit in the class,
sit in the classroom, observe the whole entire time or whatever the case, it was just a communication piece. You know, they would write us. And this had been working just fine up until we got this teacher. Go ahead.
Yeah, and when we got this teacher, it was a lot of her sending home notes saying what he may have been stuck on, and we're telling her, well, he already knows this, but why is he on letter H and the rest of the classroom is on letter Z? Like, we've explained to you and have said many a times in parent-teacher conference as well, like, you're not hearing us out. We're letting you know what he can do, and we're letting you know that he is past this. So if you're still working on this with him, you're boring him at this point.
Big time.
Because he doesn't want to do it because he already knows how to do it. And, you know, why would you have him on letter H? And we've communicated with you several times during the week, and it never came up, but you let us know 2 weeks later that this was an issue, this was a problem.
Yeah.
And it was like we were getting late notifications from her, and, you know, whenever we would question her about something that's going on, it was, well, is there anything changed? Has there anything changed in the home?
Yeah.
Well, what's going on in the home? You want to blame my home for how you're teaching when we're trying to be in sync with you. And so it became to the point to where it got redundant, and we had too many episodes. I would say probably 3 to 4, because I remember it was a couple times you went up to the school and actually talked to the principal.
Yeah.
And so, and by this last straw, which may have been the 4th time, because we weren't going to keep on letting it just keep going and keep going.
Because this is still the beginning of the school year.
It's still the beginning of the school year in kindergarten. And so we ended up having a meeting with the principal, and we were able to, you know, look at what was going on outside of her class, which we know it was set up to where they knew we were coming.
Right.
It wasn't a surprise.
Right. It was staged.
You know, we walked past the classroom, you know, and it was even, you know, Gabe would sometimes have sensory issues, so where it was some things that were hanging in the hallways, certain noises
it got to the point to where he didn't want to go to school. Yeah. It wasn't just the hallway.
It wasn't the hallway.
It was the behavior, like I said before. He was out of everybody, when the whole school riding bus thing came about, us, along with the grandparents, were afraid. You know what I'm saying? But, of course, we didn't want that to show. But he was hey, he was good. He was ready to go. But when this teacher came up, it was a change. It was a change. We didn't know what it was. You know, we looking, we making sure, we trying to see what it is. She hitting you? Is she doing something? Like, yeah, what's what?
That's the one thing that we were afraid of too, is because we've seen so many news reports on teachers that were abusing the kids. Yeah. And it was like, and I abuse adults. Allegedly. And then when we were able to have him in kindergarten, we were seeing that all of this stuff, all of these news reports were just shooting out at us. Like, we got to looking at each other, like, especially with special education children, and it was like they were being abused and teachers were neglecting them.
And he wasn't all the way 100% verbal, the way how, you know,
talking, but
but not putting the whole sentence together. Like, hey, she hit me in my face.
Right.
That you wasn't gonna get a complete sentence like that.
So it was a constant thing of us going back and forth. Gabe, how was school? What happened at school? Tell me to the best of your ability. Anybody hit you? Anybody touch you? Let me know. And he would always say no. But, you know, when we would try to see what was going on with this teacher, she just wasn't giving us what we wanted to hear. And so we had this big old IEP meeting. And
we had to pull out the big dogs. So see, they did not know that we knew. Well, we got really cool with
the principal, who ended up being the superintendent. Not the superintendent, the director over the department for special education.
Yeah, she was a big wig. But she was
the principal, and she transitioned and got a promotion, basically.
And it was a thing to where how we became as close is because at his previous school, you know, we were really involved, you know, like with anything that, you know, that they needed for us to do, and, you know, from field trips and participating and sending money and just whatever we can do, we were there. And then once again, you know, when it comes to, like what Kandy said, the communication log, like we stayed up on it. And I think we picked that up from one of the advisors or something like that. The one lady we met.
It was a parent advocate who we were meeting with. That was through I can't think of the county. It was through the county, basically.
So by us doing a lot of those things in the beginning at the previous school, it's like we kind of stood out, you know. And of course, we're not going to also throw in the fact that, you know, we are young, black,
educated,
in this is a white school district.
Predominantly.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And I guess, like, you know,
we stood out.
Yeah, we stood out. We stood out. So
yeah, because that teacher that we didn't like was trying to say that I was uneducated, that I didn't know what was going on. And that was one of the phone calls that took place. I was at school having a conversation. I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Who's uneducated? I was like, first of all, let's get this straight. Children learn at home first. You are your parent. You are your child's first teacher as a parent. And if you can't learn your child the way that you need to learn them before you send them off, there's a disconnect there if you are not able to do that. And as a parent, after we've sat through many of evaluations and even taken them to a I can't even say it right
Neurological?
now. No, neurologist.
Oh.
Even after taking him to a neurologist and taking him to get 2 different opinions from 2 different professionals and seeing the milestones that he's hitting and the ones that he's not hitting, at this point, because you've had him for less than a semester in kindergarten, you can't tell me anything about my child, because at the end of the day, if you're not accepting the parents' input, it's like, why are you the teacher? Yeah. Why are you the teacher? Because especially with a child's IEP in place, this is a team. You have a team of a speech therapist, a physical therapist if needed, to come in and out of the building if they're having difficulties with that. You also have a social worker on board along with the teacher and plenty of other people. Like, we had people that came out that we were meeting with, that was the advocate that sat in this meeting. And at the end of the day, going back to this meeting, what ended up happening was that they were saying, well, first grade, we'll change his school. We were like, well, can we change it now? Because at the end of the day, we don't want him sitting through the rest of the school year in a classroom that I'm going to have to keep going back and forth with a teacher that feels that I'm not educated enough to amount to her level or whatever level that was.
And
so
that's when we pulled out.
We pulled them out.
And we called what I meant to say, that's when we wound up pulling out the big guns, and we made that connection with the previous teacher who wound up with a principal that wound up being,
'cause she was there too,
who wound up being who had more power than just us, and low key they didn't even know at the point, because it got to a point to where by them telling us no, it was nothing that they could do. They couldn't change class, they couldn't do anything. It was like, you know what, we gonna reach out to her. And when we reached out to her, it was
instant meeting.
Okay, boom, Monday he gonna start here, or I think it was like next day.
Because he didn't, whatever day that was that we got to visit the school, like the very next day,
he was in there,
and he sat in the classroom for a second.
Good. He was good, and then
the very next day he started. So
just like
it was
that,
instant,
just like that.
And just seeing how her dynamics, the new teacher, her dynamics was set up to where that she was teaching her kindergartners that were in special education that didn't have writing skills how to write. And that was one thing at that particular time that Gabe kind of struggled with, was writing. They were writing sentences.
Full sentences.
In kindergarten. Reading and doing everything. We're
stories,
like,
and
this is it.
And that's part of the thing to where when I say
advocating,
pushing, or also advocating, but also pushing them. Mm-hmm. Just because this is what's quote unquote was associated with it in some cases, don't just automatically assume that they can't do it. Mm-hmm. Put the paper in front of them, help them out, see where they're going, see how far they can go with it. Boom. This boy can is constantly writing us letters about things that he want us to do and buy and all type of stuff, But once again, that all falls up under, advocating and not necessarily taking nobody's no or what they say for an answer, because it's always better on the other end, And
then let's add too, for those that aren't familiar with special education classrooms, these classrooms are less than half of a normal size classroom, and they have a helper there, so they have the ability to get personable with every child at some particular point, even if they can't get to them until midweek. They're able to be there. It can be
most definitely.
So it was just so many excuses from the other kindergarten teacher that we were like, we know you got all of the help that you need in this classroom. There's no way in the world that he should be that far behind. So
right.
So that was a nightmare.
So and of course, there's a lot of things that we did skip, but we just gave you guys it's more than just the who.
We just giving them more so the gist of everything.
Yeah, and basically just sharing how you can go from expecting a baby to this is your long life job of dealing with that. So
I was gonna run down a few things as far as statistics. You want me to touch on that?
I mean, go ahead.
So basically April, which is a day away, is Autism Awareness Month. And Autism Awareness Month, you may be familiar with, you may see a lot of people with, they may post the puzzles or share different stories, or even with the t-shirts and everything. It's a really big deal. So one of the things that with the statistic and I'm getting this information, you can Google it, it's available on the CDC's website and everything, so it's credible information. But as of 2020, it was estimated that autism was increasing by 10% by 1 in every 54 children, And then by 2021, they seen a decrease, and it was then 1 in every 44 children. Basically, let me give you the definition more so, because I know I skipped over like a lot of different things. The definition of what autism is basically a spectrum disorder that impacts the nervous system. It can be a serious developmental disorder that impairs the ability to communicate or interact with whomever. So some of the symptoms or some of the characteristics, you may get like a lot of avoiding eye contact. They may not be, they may lack emotion or like the what do you call like the Philly touchy? Like some of them don't want to be touched.
Oh,
Is that a part of? I'm not saying that right.
What do you mean?
Emotions. It's not emotions.
No, emotions is a part of that.
No, but like you don't like to be touched. That's like physical contact. It's like they sometimes.
You read that?
No, I'm saying that's something that I thought about that I seen that I didn't see on here. So that was one of the
you
things.
reading it.
So, also they can be reliant on rules and routines. That's something that they live by. They may get upset when it comes to changes. Unexpected reactions to different tastes, sounds, sights, touches, and smells. So I could basically say that's a sensory thing. You may not like to be touched.
So is that part of the reason why they say spectrum? Because
it's an array.
Well, hold on. Because the scale of any of those things, if not all of them, can be as minor to severe. So is that kind of a reason too why they say like it's a spectrum and this is where you kind of fall like right here, whatever it is that they see.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Then there's also...
You got to throw some clarity out there because...
Yeah. So there's also a difficulty in understanding other people's emotions. So, not understanding that you may be upset with them or they may not understand happy all the way or, just different things that may be a social cue to us like, oh, he's pissed or, they're sad, they're crying. They don't always understand that depending on the level of the mildness or the severeness of the disorder.
And that's why, too, like if you ever seen memes or people doing stories, they saying things on social media, they say patience. Please be patient. Mm-hmm. Please be patient with me. Please be patient with me. So on and so forth.
Other symptoms that you can physically see would be like, or understand more so would be like delayed language. Also,
which we talked about.
Delayed movement skills, which can be physical because those that are on the milder side are able to walk and do things of that sort. Those that are more severe, it could be to the point to where they may even need a wheelchair or they're not able to walk. Also, delayed of cognitive or learning skills. The cognitive part, like I said before, is the ability to be able to think on your own. And some children do lack the ability to think or learn. Hyperactive, impulsive, or other inattentive behaviors is one of them. Epilepsy or sometimes seizure disorder is associated. Unusual eating and sleeping habits, gastrointestinal issues, and unusual mood.
And I like to throw out there that we are not saying that these are clear indications.
Not at all.
So this is not medical advice at any point. This is just what we've seen. A lot of the things that we're talking about is what we've experienced, what we were told through our diagnosis from
the list that we gave you from our experience.
Yeah, and the list that Kandy was just reading from is is what any of you all can search on the web as well and see, but most definitely I would say if you think that something is not right with your child, reach out to your
health professional.
Yeah.
Also, diagnosis early is important also.
Big time.
Because
go ahead.
Because the longer that you wait, the longer that it may take your child to develop somewhat of a normal, what some people may call a normal life here. I would also say one of the things too with me was that, I was in school for radiology at the time before Gabe was 4 and before he was actually diagnosed. The whole reason why I laid off of radiology and went into psychology and eventually ended up pursuing my master's in social work was because of Gabe. Just because I wanted to know what was going on and how to be able to advocate more for our child when we're going through these meetings and being able to at least, give my professional insight on things that were going on with him. So I didn't want to be out of the loop as we're sitting in these meetings and they're telling us this, and this about our child. And it's like, hey, I studied that. Like, I can actually, let you know what I know when it comes to this, and this, because it's just like we were on that back end at one point and not knowing what was going on at one point until we started, hey, let me see, let me reach out to my friend because my friend says she knows a parent advocate and she knows a lot about this.
Right.
It was a lot of research.
Big time.
And then I know the one piece that you brought up, like, wanting to protect him as much as possible, like, that was one thing that I struggled with because it was like, how are we going to protect him? Because I've seen kids get teased.
Right.
And, they've been made fun of. And, people can even say that they've seen it like within their families. And then, with some things,
right,
it made me apprehensive at some point or another just through his development, like not necessarily saying that in no way, shape, or form I was ashamed, but I would take him in environments to where I felt was safe. Yeah. And because I know how mean people can be and I know how cruel and, one thing that doesn't go right with your child and they're like, oh, they want to call them names that they banned.
You automatically written off. But see, maybe because and let me throw this out here. Kiera and I grew up like that childhood part to where, most kids was running around in the inner city. That wasn't necessarily Kandy's background for the most part. It was different. She grew up in Missouri. It was really up until the second grade, and then I moved here for sure by third grade I was here. Well, but for me, what I'm saying, it was a thing to where it's like you face a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. You face it, and it's like you face. Let me see how do. I don't want to sound cruel to where it's like you want to throw them to the wolves, but you want to expose. Yeah, you want them to have exposure. And I'll say this is for not just a child that's, in his situation that's dealing with something or whatever the case may be, but any of your children, you want them to be exposed and well-rounded with all walks of life, and I'm not necessarily saying that they have to experience it full-fledged, but being knowledgeable and letting them know to where, you can't be gullible to the point to where, everybody's not going to treat you the way how we treat you. It is vital to be able to conduct yourself and be able to understand certain things, of course, at your level, for whatever age or what, I'm saying, for your age or whatever, so it's really important to talk to your kids, to talk to your children, to expose them to certain things, not necessarily sheltering them, and keeping them in this little bubble because, like I said, we can't be around them 24/7. And just like you were saying, to me, all of that made sense to where it was like, okay, here it is. He has something that was a condition that is not going nowhere. This is what it is. It may be
less milder the older he gets.
With him, it may be a thing to, the way how I was looking at it though at the time is like, yeah, you can express yourself, but it may not be quick enough to where how the kids do on the playground. Right. And at this point, we didn't necessarily know, but this is how I'm thinking, So my thing was, I want to put you in a situation so you can so you can see, so you can know and understand and be able to, your damnedest to be able to come and communicate with us to where it's not a thing that you in the corner being pushed around and, you're not saying nothing or this and this and that. No. And I mean, there's situations to where I could say that he will come home and tell us that it was other kids being bad, doing things because he recognized those things because we didn't hide him we didn't shelter him from them things. You know what I'm saying? And I understand too that what we are talking about as far as our experience with Gabriel's autism journey is not everybody's. This is more so just what we've experienced and a thing to where we just want to let people know that, just keep people how can I say this? Basically keep people, everybody's story does not always end up the same way because, when you have a child, there are certain things that you just don't know until that child is here. And once that child is here, I mean, your life is already changing forever. Right. You know what I'm saying? So just be mindful that, there are some people, they don't always have that story to where it just stay. I mean, don't get me wrong. It will still be happy, but it's much more on them. It's nonstop. It's like they may have to work and then they got to, it just keep going. It keep going. And as the older they get and it just is bearing on them too as well. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a darker side to that, is. with some parents, and just imagine being,
because I can even say like, that we felt alone at one point or time. Yeah. It got dark to where we felt like, this is our situation. Nobody else understands it. Nobody else in the family is going through it. Yeah. Everybody can try to empathize with it. Yep. But until you walk that mile in our shoes, like you have no clue.
Just like what my bro saying. He says that, you got to walk through that fire. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we had to do. We had to physically walk through that fire with him, and, you can get all of the advice in the world from outsiders that never experienced it, and is your journey is your journey, So we just wanted to kind of make this episode, just kind of shed light and, on that everybody's situation is not the same when it's a brand new baby. Some people, they don't, who really expects that, who really expects that, my child is going to be in the hospital all of their life, or they're going to need 24-hour care all of their life. You know what I'm saying? And just be mindful that there are situations like that. There are new parents that, at 20, 21, maybe even younger than that. And this is your life now. Your life is taking your child to and from the doctor's office every other day. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of an episode just shedding light on that aspect because, it's a thing to where, people are quick to, and even ourselves too, we, you do the photo shoots, you do this, you do that. But after that baby is here, it's a whole nother world that can be revealed to you. You know what I'm saying? And, of course you're going to do what you have to do, but just know everybody's situation is not the same. So I don't know if you want to wrap it up or if I did, but this has been one of the longest episodes that we've done.
It's been longer because it's been personal, more so personable.
And we went back and forth, you know, even from when we first started doing the podcast. When will be the right time? How will we do it? You know, should we do it? Mm-hmm. And I know one thing for sure, because like with social media, you know, you're finding out. I mean, it's a lot of people that's, especially in our age group. It's a lot of people that they're starting to find out that their child is they either have it, or that they're being diagnosed with it, or
that they have even other disabilities that they're faced with and that they're challenging. Yeah. And don't get us wrong, like, you know, everything sounds good, but we do have our days. We have our days that we go through it with him. It's not a thing to where it's just automatically just gone or that it disappears. No. Sometimes, you know, physically you can look at him and you will not be able to tell, you know. Right. But we do have our days to where we are challenged. Yeah. And he's getting older now, so he's hitting those preteen markers and stages to where he's not the same little guy that he was 5 or 6 years ago. So it is, you know.
Because just recently, he's really been like what would you say? Excessive with certain things. Very. Like, so, and one of the traits that he will possess, it could be a thing today. He can be overly indulged with cooking. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's going to learn everything about it. He going to tell you about it. He want to go to the store. He want to research it. He going to find the top of the line, most expensive of whatever it is. So recently, and he's been doing a decent job for an 11-year-old. He's been doing a decent job when it comes to hygiene, you know. But when it comes to him finding that Listerine Cool Mint toothpaste, Total Care or Total Care mouthwash is top of the line, let me tell you, this boy has brushed his teeth so many times it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
He's shackling them. Yeah. Like our 4-year-old.
He's most definitely shackling those teeth. That's what Callie says. Yeah, but you know, it's most definitely a journey. I wouldn't change it for nothing in the world. I
know one thing, it's made us stronger.
Oh, you have to be. This ain't for the weak.
It's not.
It's not for the weak, because, you know, like a lot of those traits that you named, you know, to where it's like he get in those modes to where he's silly, or he just don't want. You could tell when he's had enough, you know, or it's just too much. Whatever, that's his breaking point overload. Right there. It's an overload. He need to reset. Go lay down, boy. Go lay down. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So yeah. So that's that. But yeah.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to close it out? Or
so basically, that is going to conclude. That's going to conclude for now.
No need to run it down.
I know I'm not running nothing down. I'm not, because it's been long enough anyway. It's
an hour and 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness! I'm concluding this podcast. We touched on just new parenthood again, and as well as our son that is going through autism. We don't necessarily like to say, I was told autistic is not the proper term to use, so just saying that they have autism is better wording for it. Yeah. You know, I would just say, just pay attention to your children. You know, parents, you know when there's something going on with them.
Don't be ashamed.
Don't be ashamed.
Don't be ashamed.
Even though it feels like you alone, because we've been there.
Don't. Because just like I said before, just think of, or like we both said, just think about it. As that child getting older, you're getting older as well. Mm-hmm. That child at some point is going to have to enter the world, whether it's, okay, if you being ashamed to admit that something is wrong, and you put them in regular schooling and they haven't had the proper somewhat teaching or upbringing, that, you know, just being introduced to how school settings or how to control certain emotions or experience certain things, you are going to be in for a world
rough
of
ride.
trouble. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine if we would have waited and didn't say nothing and just, tried to put him in kindergarten with the rest of the, like, it would have been like, okay, no, he got to stay back.
Mm-hmm.
He has to stay back.
Mm-hmm.
No, but all along it was something going on. So most definitely don't be ashamed. Do not be ashamed. Get help. Talk to somebody. You can even email us at imperfectlyperfectcouple.com.
Mm-hmm.
Hit us up on Facebook.
Now I have those credentials to talk about this type of stuff.
I mean, or we could give you some resources.
We
can give you some resources. That's what it would be.
Seek out your professional.
Yeah.
The professional medical advice in your life.
So once again, you can contact us via Facebook or Instagram at Imperfectly Imperfect Couple. Also at imperfectlyimperfectcouple@gmail.com. Do you have the number?
1844-U-VENT.
All right, Dan. It's been real.
Imperfectly perfect. Imperfectly perfect. Imperfectly perfect. Imperfectly